Facepalm America. I'm Beowulf Franklin. Find us on Twitter at FacepalmUSA. And as we start out the new year, I'd like to tell you a tale, if I could. A bureaucratic horror story. This comes to us originally from the Daily Montanan. It's a story out of Billings, Montana. It all started when Ariane Whitman saw a toilet in the lower level of her Billings Heights home overflowing. The date was June 19th, 2019. She saw a cigarette butt coming up through the murky water. And yet, no one in her house smoked. As the water continued gurgling up, it also started coming up through the drains. She and her husband, Jeremy Talon, called a plumber. The plumber arrived and looked at the basement. He ran to the street and immediately called the city. The sewer was clogged, and raw sewage from the surrounding neighborhood was backing up into Whitman's house. Crews from the Public Works Department of the city of Billings arrived with a power jet truck and removed what turned out to be a grease blockage. The sewage stopped, and the city told Whitman to call a disaster restoration service and gave her the contact information for the city's insurance carrier. Almost everything on the bottom level of her two-level home, the two kids' bedrooms, everything in them, had to be thrown away. The flooring and most of the fixtures would have to be removed. The walls had to be taken down to the studs in order to make repairs. For months, she would have people working on this situation wearing hazmat suits. And yet, the biggest nightmare was to come. And we'll return in a moment on Facepalm America to tell you what that was. Ariane Whitman's house had just been struck by a massive sewage backup. Her kids didn't have beds. She lost her home office. The workers who were cleaning up had to wear protective hazmat suits just to enter the basement. Before the restoration work was complete, the crew used 140 suits. And then, Whitman and her husband, Jeremy Talon, learned that the backup was not caused by their house, and the blockage was in the city's sewer system. Neither the city nor their homeowner's insurance would cover the $80,000 to $100,000 of cleanup, rebuilding, and replacing items in her house. So the couple sued the city of Billings. The city is part of a self-insured cooperative insurance fund that covers many municipalities in the state. The case is now before the Montana Supreme Court, and the outcome could decide whether cities have to pay up on the rare times when a sewer line is blocked from the main, or whether a small number of residents will be forced to find a way to repair their houses out of pocket to the tune sometimes of tens of thousands of dollars, or risk losing their houses altogether. Records show that it's rare sewers back up. Documents reveal that in a city with about 60,000 residential hookups, backups happen on average around 12 times a year. It affects less than 1/4%. Many of the backups, as tracked by the city, don't threaten the entire structure. Sewer backups are most commonly caused by flushing larger objects into the sanitary system, by grease, or from businesses or restaurants. The city of Billings uses high-powered, pressurized water jets and cameras which routinely flush and clear the system. Because of that, the city and its insurance fund has determined that the backup in Whitman's home, even though it was the result of a blockage in the city's sewer system, was an unforeseen, unpreventable occurrence, and therefore, the city refuses to pay. Homeowners don't have the choice whether to hook up to the city's sewer system. It's the law. It's mandated. And because the city owns and maintains the sewer system, homeowners can't buy insurance against a backup like this. Or if they can, it's capped at a lower limit, less than $10,000. Not nearly enough to cover the cost of damage like this. Whitman and Talon couldn't have insured themselves against the problem. And now, half their house has been destroyed. The city of Billings doesn't dispute the events or the couple's version of the story. It doesn't deny that sewer backups can happen to residents. But it claims those are akin to acts of God, for which it should not be held responsible. The city said it could not reasonably have known or prevented the backup, so it shouldn't be on the hook. Whitman says even though the lower level of her house has been put back together, she still finds herself checking constantly. Any suspicious smell puts her anxiety on high alert. Her next-door neighbors had some damage to their basement, but not as much as hers. Had she not been home, her basement would likely have been worse, and others in the neighborhood would likely have suffered the same fate. In court filings, the city admits it has no way of tracing where the grease blockage originated. Putting her home back together has been challenging for Whitman. Her children didn't have beds or clothing, and possessions acquired over the course of years, toys, family photos, mementos, had to be thrown away in an instant. COVID was horrible because we were all trapped in here, and I hated it, Whitman said. She and her husband have used credit cards, savings, even relied on their parents to help purchase new furniture and clothes. Whitman rolls her eyes at the sign in her daughter's room, which reads, "Welcome to the shit show." At first, when the city responded to the blockage, she was handed a piece of paper with the city's insurance contact. and was told to get a disaster service called immediately. She felt reassured, but when she found out the city wasn't going to pay, she had thoughts of losing her home. The man told me it was a risk that we take when we hook our home up to the sewer system, said Whitman. That was a risk that wasn't avoidable. If you're a property owner in the city limits, a home is required to be on the sewer system. Even though the percentage of times this happens is small compared to the entire sewer system of Montana's largest city, it still represents a real-life taking of property without compensation, something that raises constitutional questions, says Whitman's lawyer. He says it would tip most middle-class folks into bankruptcy. The case is now before the Montana Supreme Court, and we'll have to wait and see whether the city is made to take on this responsibility. When we come back on Facepalm America, we'll have more horrific tales of sewage across America. Stay with us. That was a harrowing story indeed. I can't imagine so difficult what this woman and her family have been through, being out of so many possessions, so many tens of thousands of dollars, and yet having the city of Billings, Montana, refuse to pay for sewage that came out of their system and destroyed half of their home. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, Montana is far from the only part of the country with sewage nightmares. Los Angeles is another. In fact, beaches in Los Angeles and Orange counties, just in the last few days, were shut down after a main line of their sewer failed, leaking millions of gallons of untreated sewage into the Dominguez Channel, which empties into Los Angeles Harbor. Ugh. After the 48-inch sewer main line located in the city of Carson failed on Thursday afternoon, as many as 7 million gallons of sewage may have been discharged into the waterway, forcing officials to temporarily prohibit swimming at several beaches out of an abundance of caution. The low-end estimate of the spill was 2 million to 4 million gallons, and the high-end estimate was 6 million to 7 million gallons. At least, that's what they're telling us now. And on the other side of the country, in Pennsylvania, the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority has agreed to pay $450,000 in penalty and make substantial upgrades to its system because of more than 250 overflows of raw sewage since 2014. As part of that process, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed a civil suit this week under the Clean Water Act, so